Now that we got the materials sorted, let's dive into some landscaping. So to get started, you see right over here, we have a landscape tab. We've been working on the content library, the material library, and now let's switch to landscape. The first thing that you're going to see is this little paint icon and some swatches here. Basically what this is saying is you can actually paint different areas, different materials. This is why I was saying earlier on when we're selecting different starting templates, you can go from a desert scene to a forest scene. That's because of this. So to kind of illustrate what I mean is, let me go over here, and by default I've got this picked, right? You see as I drag my cursor out, I've got a circle that's coming from the brush size, and watch this. If I increase that, that will get bigger. So I'm just going to paint a little path, and I'm holding my mouse down, and you'll see it's very slowly changing the material. If I increase the speed, you'll see that faster, okay? So we're actually able to change the texture right here. And what's nice is if this was the wrong material, I just click this, and I can change that to anything. It's just swapping out that slot. So you basically have 4 different texture slots that you can use. So I'm just gonna make this a darker color. That's totally fine. And if you want, you can actually do a global change right through here. So if I click this and go to grass 2, you'll see that these slots have changed. I go to grass, these slots have changed, right? So generally what I do is I try to make the background slot similar to this. So I'm just going to click this. I usually stick with this one, Farmland EU border. So if you don't see this, it's this guy right down here. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th from the bottom. Okay. And what's cool is like you can mix and match. So if I wanted, that desert material, I could just go here and then I could paint that. So that's what this is. And this is your side rock material. So if you're not sure what this means is when we sculpt height, yeah, you can actually sculpt height in Lumion right over here. It's going to add a texture to the side. So check this out. We've got a raise, a lower, a flatten, a jitter, and a smoothen tool. So watch this. I'm just going to raise this. That's that side rock, right? So if I were to go back to paint and then change side rock, see that? That's what's happening there. Okay. So you've got a lot of customization here. So let me go back to height and I'll increase the size. There you go. So that makes a little more sense. So that's that texture slot from before, the second one, and then side rock. And then if this is no good, I can always lower, I can smooth, and then I can flatten. Okay. So when you really want to flatten everything, start from the flattest area and then move in. See that? And that will basically fix everything. If you're curious what jitter is, it just adds some noise, which isn't, a bad idea. I do like to just add some detail in the background. So I'll increase the size, lower the speed, and I'll just add some hills. That way there's some variation here. Okay. So I'm just going to do that. And what I mean by that is when I have the camera down here, I don't want to just see a flat horizon line. So that's what we're doing. You see how it's being broken up? That's how you know you've done a good job. So just break it up a little bit. Okay. You can add jitter if you want. Okay. And I like that the side rock is coming through because that's going to add some nice detail as well. And we'll add trees and everything, but it'll all blend together. And that way you just don't see that flat line. Okay. And I'll probably go in and just smoothen as well. But this is kind of my thought process that I'm sharing with you of how I set up my backgrounds. Okay, cool. Yeah, so that looks much better. And we'll add more detail, of course. So the other thing I want to point out is you can also add landscape grass. Remember how we raised our model before so landscape grass wouldn't come through? Check this out. If I check this on, look at that. Look at all this grass that's being spawned here. And I can change the size of it. Okay, the height. And that's the issue I wanted to avoid. So I'm going to keep that low. So what's nice about this is now it'll actually render grass out, which is great. Cool. And if you want, you can actually get crazy and add other objects. So watch this. So if I click here and add a rock, see that? So you can use this to generate a bunch of different assets in your grass. Me here, because I generally just use my flat plane that I get from SketchUp, it's not going to go there unless I make this a landscape material. So if you're unfamiliar with what that is, if I go over to materials real quick and I select here, then I go over to new, landscape, then this is going to carry over, right? So we've got a couple options when it comes to 3D grass, right? You can make it a landscape object and it'll share all these properties. It'll be the same color, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We can definitely leave it this way if we want. I'll probably just like change the assets we're using. So I'm just going to go back to save changes and back to landscape. And let's tweak this some more. So we don't want that many rocks. So if I want to edit that, I'm just going to click it. We'll lower the spread. Sorry, we'll increase the spread and we'll lower the size. We'll add some more randomization. Okay, because we don't want to have that many rocks, right? There's no reason to have that many in the lawn. Okay, I'm going to go back and let's add some clovers. That'll help break up what's going on here. You notice how it replaced our rocks, right? You can have different slots, but if you have something selected and then you click something else, it'll overwrite it. So if I want a new object, like the rocks, I want to make sure I'm using a new slot, right? So I'm going to go back to clovers and let's customize this some more. We'll increase the spread. Let's increase the size. Okay, we'll randomize the size a bit. Okay, and now let's just add more objects. Yeah, things we typically see. Okay, it's a nice little white flower. And again, we're just breaking up the grass. Because if you look at any lawn, it's not just grass, right? You've got leaves, you've got dandelions. So I'm just going to go through and just add more detail. Yeah, perfect. And then depending on like how vibrant it is, I might increase the spread. So like we don't want too many dandelions, just a little bit. Maybe more leaves, right? So I'll lower the spread. Okay. And let's change that. Yeah, let's get some more leaves in here. And I'm just going to wind up adding more slots for leaves. Perfect. Cool. Awesome. So that's how you use that. Super powerful. And you can always toggle this on and off. So this is going to affect your performance, right? So if you want, you can just turn it on later. It's going to preserve all your settings, but it is going to tank performance in a way. And it's great that this is always editable, and this is just going to live under landscape, so you can always go back. If there's a project that has, water, let's say like an ocean or a lake, you can use these tools right over here. Ocean is going to add a consistent water plane, as you can see here, right? And water is just going to add a water surface. Watch this. If I hit place, check that out. And this is all editable. So usually if I were to, create a lake, I would actually lower the terrain a bit and then place this water plane in there that I can customize the height. And it's great that it actually creates the waves when it interacts with the surface. So I don't need this. I can delete it. But before I do that, just know that you can swap out the types as well. So just like the grass, the water has the same thing. I'm going to delete that. And then the last thing I'll point out when it comes to our landscape area is this right here, OpenStreetMap. If you're not familiar with what this is OpenStreetMap is a open source project that actually has 3D data in massing form of all like neighboring contexts. So check this out. I hit check mark. And I hit OK. It's going to ask for coordinates. I'm just going to, pick a random location. Click that, and I'm going to download this. So watch this. So check that out. It brought in streets, right? It brought in a street map, and it brought in buildings. This is what I mean by massing, right? It's nothing detailed. It's just literally like boxes. But it's kind of cool to see. This is useful for like urban projects where you have like a really large, square footage in terms of like coverage that you don't want to model everything. This is really good for like cities and stuff. So that's what that is. And you've got some extra functions where you can actually push the height. So super cool. And you can toggle these things on and off, and some color presets as well. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off. Don't need that. Okay, great. All right, cool. So that's it for the landscaping. Spend some time just like adding some more detail if you want. We just want to hide the horizon line, but really we want to make sure that we have like enough assets in the grass. That way it's broken up and it doesn't look so flat. Okay, So in the next video, we'll talk about placing vegetation right where these poles are.